You upgraded your PC 6 months ago. You paid $200 for 32 gigabytes of DDR5. Today, that same kit costs $380. Tomorrow, it might not exist at all. This isn't inflation. This is something far more dangerous. This is the beginning of the Great RAM Famine of 2025. And if you think your gaming rig is safe, you're already behind the curve. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening right now at this very moment in the semiconductor supply chain. While you were sleeping, while you were scrolling through social media, while you were living your normal life, the entire foundation of consumer memory markets has been ripped apart. And the culprit isn't some shadowy cartel or government regulation. It's a perfect storm of forces that nobody saw coming, converging at exactly the wrong time in exactly the wrong way. The numbers don't lie. DDR5 memory prices have surged 94% since January 2025. A 64-gigabyte kit that cost you $250 in December 2024 now commands $485 on Newegg. Kingston Fury, Corsair Vengeance, G-Skill Trident. It doesn't matter what brand you're looking at, they've all gone vertical. And here's the kicker. This isn't a temporary spike. This isn't a logistics hiccup that gets resolved in a quarter. This is structural collapse masquerading as a price increase. You need to understand something fundamental about RAM production. It's not like baking bread. You can't just spin up a new factory because demand went up. A modern DRAM fabrication plant costs $20 billion to build and takes 3 years to bring online. The players are limited. Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron Technology. That's it. 3 companies control 95% of global DRAM production. And right now, all 3 of them are facing the same nightmare. They can't make enough chips to satisfy demand, and the gap is widening every single day. Why? Because 2 forces that were supposed to stay in their lanes have collided head-on in the memory market, and the impact is catastrophic. On one side, you have the crypto mining resurgence. On the other side, you have the AI revolution. Both of them are starving for the same resource: high-capacity, high-bandwidth memory. And the consumer market, your market, is getting crushed in the middle. Let's talk about crypto first, because this is the part that blindsided everyone. In 2022 and 2023, crypto mining was supposed to be dead. Ethereum moved to proof of stake. GPU mining was over. The miners sold their rigs. The nightmare was finished. But here's what the experts missed. Ethereum wasn't the only game in town. Ethereum Classic never left. Caspa exploded. Ergo gained traction. Ravencoin is still profitable. And all of these chains share one critical characteristic. They require massive amounts of VRAM to mine efficiently. In February 2025, the average profitability of GPU mining hit levels not seen since the 2021 bull run. Miners who mothballed their RTX 3090s and RX 6900 XTs pulled them out of storage. But the new generation of miners isn't satisfied with 12-gigabyte cards. They're building rigs with RTX 4090s, with Radeon RX 7900 XTXs, cards that pack 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X or more, and they're building them by the thousands. Reports from mining forums show rig builders purchasing 50 to 100 high-end GPUs per order. One distributor in Shenzhen told a tech journalist that their Q1 2025 GPU sales to mining operations increased 340% compared to Q4 2024. These aren't hobbyists. These are industrial operations. Mining farms in Kazakhstan, Paraguay, and Texas consuming graphics cards like oxygen. And every single one of those GPUs contains between 12 and 24 gigabytes of memory that could have gone to consumer products. But crypto mining is just the appetizer. The main course is artificial intelligence. And AI doesn't nibble at memory supply, it devours it whole. Consider the requirements of a modern AI training server. A single NVIDIA H100 GPU contains 80 gigabytes of HBM3 memory. A DGX H100 system contains 8 of those GPUs. That's 640 gigabytes of cutting-edge memory in one box. But the GPU memory is only part of the equation. These systems also require massive amounts of DDR5 system RAM. 512 gigabytes is now considered entry-level for AI workloads. High-end configurations are pushing into the terabyte range. Meta announced in March 2025 that their new AI training cluster would contain over 100,000 H100 equivalent GPUs. Microsoft expanded their Azure AI infrastructure by 60% in Q1 alone. Google, Amazon, Tesla, every major tech company is in an arms race to build the biggest AI training facilities. And every single one of these facilities requires obscene amounts of memory. Here's where it gets ugly for you. The memory going into AI servers isn't some exotic, separate product line. It's the same DDR5 DIMMs that go into your motherboard. Same factories, same production lines, same supply chain. And when a hyperscaler like Amazon Web Services puts in an order for 500,000 memory modules, Samsung doesn't tell them to wait. They tell the consumer channel to get in line. According to DRAM Exchange, 68% of global DDR5 production in Q1 2025 went to enterprise and data center customers. That leaves 32% for the entire consumer market. Desktops, laptops, gaming, all fighting over the scraps. And that 32% is shrinking. Industry analysts project that by Q3 2025, enterprise will command 75% of DDR5 output. You're not competing with other gamers for memory anymore. You're competing with OpenAI. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the materials crisis. Because even if the fabs could run at full capacity, even if demand magically stabilized, there's still a problem. The raw materials that go into memory production are undergoing their own supply shock, and it's making everything worse. Silver hit $32 per troy ounce in April 2025, a level not seen since 2013. Why does silver matter for RAM? Because every memory module contains silver, not as decoration, as a critical functional component. The contact fingers on the bottom of a DIMM, the traces that connect the memory chips to the PCB, the solder used in assembly, all of them contain silver. Silver is the best electrical conductor after gold, and it's irreplaceable for high-speed signal integrity. A single 32GB DDR5 module contains approximately 0.3 grams of silver. That doesn't sound like much until you scale it. Samsung alone produces over 100 million memory modules per year. That's 30,000 kilograms of silver just for one manufacturer. When silver prices jump 40% in 6 months, that cost gets passed directly to you. But silver isn't the only metal causing problems. Platinum, used extensively in the chemical vapor deposition equipment that fabricates memory chips, has surged 28% since December 2024. Palladium, critical for wire bonding and chip assembly, is up 22%. Tantalum, used in capacitors on memory modules, hit a 5-year high in March. Every single input cost is spiking simultaneously. And then there's the production crisis. The semiconductor industry runs on extreme ultraviolet lithography machines made by one company, ASML in the Netherlands. These machines cost $200 million each and can only be produced at a rate of about 50 units per year. TSMC, the world's largest chip manufacturer, announced in February 2025 that their advanced packaging capacity was running at 94% utilization, with a backlog extending into 2026. Translation: even if memory manufacturers wanted to expand production, they can't get the equipment. The bottleneck isn't money, it's physics. You can't magic up a semiconductor fab overnight. This brings us to the speculators, because wherever there's scarcity, there's opportunity. And opportunists have descended on the RAM market like locusts. Check eBay right now. Search for DDR5 memory. You'll find dozens of sellers with inventory listings in the hundreds. These aren't retailers. They're flippers who bought up stock in late 2024 when prices were low. One seller in California is sitting on 400 kits of Corsair Dominator Platinum. Another in New Jersey has 600 G-Skill Trident Z5 modules listed. They're not using this memory, they're warehousing it, waiting for prices to climb higher. Reddit's hardware swap forums are filled with stories of local computer shops buying out Micro Center stock the moment it arrives. Resellers using bots to snatch up online inventory within seconds of listing. The secondary market has become a feeding frenzy, and legitimate consumers are getting priced out. A 32GB DDR5 6000 kit that retailed for $180 in November 2024 is now selling for $340 on eBay from third-party sellers. That's an 89% markup. And people are paying it, because the alternative is waiting months for retail stock that might never come. The major manufacturers aren't helping. Samsung raised their contract prices to OEMs by 18% in March 2025. SK Hynix followed with a 15% increase. Micron announced 13% higher pricing effective April. These aren't isolated moves. This is coordinated margin expansion during a supply crisis. The memory cartel knows they have you over a barrel, and they're extracting every dollar they can. Kingston's quarterly earnings call in March revealed that their average selling price per gigabyte increased 24% year over year. Corsair reported that memory revenue grew 41% despite unit sales only increasing 8%. The math is simple. They're selling less product for more money, and their profit margins have never been fatter. What does this mean for you? It means the PC upgrade you were planning is about to cost double. That 64GB kit you wanted for content creation? Budget $500 instead of $280. That 32GB gaming build? You're looking at $350 for RAM alone. And next quarter, those numbers will be higher. Gaming laptops are getting decimated. Manufacturers can't absorb these cost increases. MSI raised prices on their high-end gaming laptops by an average of $200 in March. Asus followed suit with increases ranging from $150 to $300 depending on configuration. Dell's Alienware line saw price hikes across the board. The $1,500 gaming laptop is becoming extinct. The new floor is $1,800, and it's climbing. Pre-built desktop manufacturers are in the same boat. NZXT, iBuyPower, CyberPower PC. All of them have updated their configurators with higher base prices. What used to be a $1,200 mid-range gaming PC is now $1,400. Not because the CPU or GPU got more expensive, because the memory alone added $200 to the bill. The DIY market is suffering worst of all. You can't negotiate with Newegg. You can't wait for a sale that isn't coming. You're faced with a simple choice: pay the inflated price or don't build. And judging by the inventory turnover rates, most people are paying. Steam hardware survey data from March 2025 shows that the percentage of users with 32GB or more of RAM actually decreased slightly compared to February. For the first time in 5 years, RAM capacity adoption is moving backward. Not because people don't want more memory, because they can't afford it. So where does this end? When do prices come back down? The uncomfortable truth is that nobody knows. Supply chain experts are projecting that DDR5 prices will remain elevated through at least Q3 2025. Some analysts are predicting that we won't see 2024 pricing again until 2026. The forces driving this crisis aren't temporary. Crypto mining isn't going away. AI demand is accelerating, not slowing. Material costs are sticky. They don't snap back quickly. And here's the really terrifying part. DDR5 is still early in its adoption curve. DDR4 is slowly being phased out. Intel's 13th gen and newer CPUs require DDR5. AMD's Ryzen 7000 and 9000 series require DDR5. As DDR4 production winds down, all demand will funnel into DDR5. The pressure is only going to intensify. If you're sitting on the fence about upgrading, if you're waiting for prices to drop, if you think this is a temporary spike that will correct itself, you're making a critical mistake. This isn't a dip you can buy. This is a structural shift in the memory market. The days of cheap, abundant RAM are over. Welcome to the new normal. Subscribe to stay ahead of the breaking developments in the tech hardware crisis. Leave a comment below and tell me what you're seeing in your local market. Are prices exploding where you live? Have you been priced out of an upgrade? Share your story. We're all navigating this storm together.